In the state of sports performance right now, it's very common for different silos or groups to form all around the country, around the world. And these are groups of people in geographic areas, but also thought people, different philosophies that start to develop. Outside the box is very special because we take these different silos and different groups, put them in the same room, put them on a panel, and we get to discuss what's happening, share and learn from each other. So the first question that I have for each one of you gentlemen is, I want to know, in the last 1 to 2 years, what is something that you have learned from somebody else, or something that you've seen that has really inspired you and dramatically transformed the way that you train and coach athletes?
I'll start. And it's not because I'm sitting on this panel here, but the thing that I think about anytime I see somebody sprinting is I think spinal engine. I think head over foot. And that all comes from this guy who showed up at a Feed the Cats seminar in Orange County, and he pulled a hamstring demonstrating. I'll never forget that.
I was demonstrating wrong.
Yeah, so the spinal engine, I think, is really important. I think it's so clear to me now why I think that just lifting, especially for football players, is so terrible for their movement patterns, because when you lift, you brace your spine and you can lock up your spine. And I think we've all seen kids come out, the muscle-bound kids that look good in a mirror, and you're like, he's going to get hurt in the first 3 days. And they do, because their spine is locked down, and being able to move is so important, and to move correctly. And so that's kind of my thing.
Yeah. I'll follow up. I would say that in the past year and a half, the most exciting thing that has happened to me was becoming aware of Tony. And what I appreciate about Tony is the fact that he has been devoted to craft without climbing the ladder as the first objective, right? So that right there that makes you special, because most people, especially the younger crowd, right? You're going after the ring, you want the brass ring, and so what am I going to post, what am I going to say, who am I going to talk to, so that I'm perceived as the guy who's presenting the ring. But I have cared about sports performance more than anything probably in my life, because I'm athletically inadequate, so it gives me high motivation to figure out how to beat the better man. And Tony's theories and practices, this concept of never burn the steak. This entire hour is devoted to 6 seconds of stimulus that's going to make you faster, right? And that takes tremendous confidence, because a lack of confidence, the way you solve that is you pile more on, right? Pile more on. And the athletes that I've worked with, several of them, the question that I keep getting in the beginning is, are we doing enough? Are we doing enough? Are we doing enough? I don't know, is the ball going further? Yeah, you tell me. Are we doing enough? I don't know. So I think the time has come where Tony's methodology and years of experience, it's just going to become known across the board. And I think that's the justifiable end point, which is a new beginning point for the entire industry. Because we've got a bunch of children in the industry, me included, a bunch of bickering, a bunch of bullshit, a bunch of blah, blah, blah. And we're going to break down the walls now, and we're going to use objective, empirical measure, right? And then we're going to find a better balance of competition and cooperation, right? It's only healthy when you're competitive and cooperative, right? And so best idea wins has to be the model moving forward. Because all this legacy shit, not that legacy, but the legacy shit of, oh, well, my master taught me this and therefore that, and science is now a new religion that we will pray to. There's a lot of athletes with non-contact injuries, okay? And I have theories about why these non-contact injuries have become epidemic. Okay, we're talking about lives where the dreams have been crushed And I'm sensitive to it because in the industry, as the inventor of the Bosu ball, I'm like pinata, okay? If you want to throw a stone, who do you want to hit? It's me, okay? And I don't care about that as much as I care about the best information reaching the people so that people put into practice principles that are true and invariantly correct. And faster is faster. You want the ultimate science? Click, click. That's how I feel. And so I'm just thrilled that Tony's my new friend. I met him up at that conference that he was putting on. We went out to dinner, and oh man, it was a late night. I invited him to drive down to San Diego with me. He had a flight in the morning, couldn't do it. So anyway, that's hats off to Tony Holler. That's what I have to say.
And just to add one thing, like we're probably polar opposites politically, and we're still friends, which I think is a powerful thing, that we don't have to agree with everything. David can be wrong on everything political, and I still love his Spinal Engine stuff.
I'd say for me, and it's maybe ironic that we're sitting here at UbrZati, but meeting Tim and Beau a couple years ago really kind of changed the way that I was looking at some of the way we were doing things and integrating the treadmill into what we were doing. I was never a treadmill guy. I knew about some treadmill stuff. I remember the acceleration program up in
I cut my teeth, man.
up in Greeley, almost
one.
30 years ago, and kind of looking at it, thinking, oh, there's some interesting stuff there, but it's you're still just running on a treadmill, and so for us, it really was, how can we use that as a tool to enhance the things that we're already doing in ground interaction, and some of the things that I've experienced with it over the last 6 months that we've had them in our facility has been unreal. And tomorrow I'll talk about some of the way that we've integrated it. But that's been a major shift for us in how we're programming and how I'm programming for some of the professional athletes that I work with. And I'm kind of a growth mindset guy. I'm always looking for stuff, watching Bam's stuff, watching David's stuff. Tony and I formulated a relationship 5 years ago that probably both changed some things, but also affirmed some things that I had been doing. And so, meeting these guys and being able to integrate that equipment into what we were doing was totally game changing for me. So, I feel like I change stuff all the time. I think as good coaches, you're always kind of questioning what you're doing. Been doing this for 30 years. I've had a lot of success, but I think every couple months I'm like, man, should I be doing that anymore? What else can I offer up? So not getting locked into like, hey, this is my system, this is what I do, and getting outside the box and listening to some other people that might have more wisdom than you do has been just a total blessing in my career.
I think what people have to understand right now is when everybody is like, the past year, 2 years, I understand the question, but what I think we need to really focus on is, 30 years. I'm almost at 30 years. Tony, 30 plus years, right?
44.
44 years. David?
I started in '92 as a personal trainer to finance my acting career for 7 years. Then I invent the Bosu ball, and I say, this opportunity is way too good. Call my agent, I'm done.
So, so we're talking basically 120 years plus of, I guess you want to call it knowledge, right?
Something
But
like that.
you could say 1 year. What have I learned in the last year is, I'm the, I hate the term I'm the treadmill guy, but technically I am the treadmill guy because that's what I've been doing for 30 plus years. But then you meet somebody like Bam, and he's like, no, you need to see it this way. Look from the back and see what's going on from a spiral. David is head over toe. Tony, feed the cats. Don't burn that steak. Kula, track, and this is what we do in the track world, and this is how I'm training certain people. I'm training them like a track athlete, but they're not a track athlete. At the end of the day, it's all about speed. But what I think people have to understand is you take all that knowledge, and we can all be up here and say, okay, I do it this way. I'm like, no, I'm the treadmill guy. I'm going to stay the treadmill guy. I'm going to be the feed the cats guy. I'm the Bosu ball guy. I'm the Weck guy, right? I'm the primal movement guy. But at the end of the day, I think what everybody has to understand is when you can combine all that knowledge, all the movement, all the speed, and combine it together, and once again, be outside the box in the thinking. Like you said, you may not agree with him, I may not agree with you, you may not agree with me. You weren't a treadmill guy until you met me a year ago, and you combine all that knowledge together and come up, not necessarily with the system, but be able to say, hey, I'm gonna do Kula, and we're gonna do Kula Z. I'm gonna do Feed the Cats, but I'm gonna add it into possibly what we do on the treadmill. I'm gonna take BAM, add in head over foot or whatever the Weck method is, and combine it together. If you're sitting out there and you're new into the industry, and I was just talking to Tony's son, another, I think, thing we have to understand is, and this maybe we're getting, is what we have been doing, each of us, over the past 30 years, is where the industry is now going.
Yeah.
And I talked to your son and I said, just think how cool this is in 30 years, right? You may be looking back and thinking, holy shit, right? 30 years ago, there was the first annual, right, UbrZati podcast, and these guys were talking about how they developed speed and what speed is now and the way it is, and now it's the norm, where now it may be a little bit different, and we're getting blowback on what BAM's doing, you're getting blowback on what Kula's doing, you're getting blowback on what Holler's doing, right? Weck, he's doing whatever he's doing, right? The treadmill guy, that's not, running on the treadmill is just not the same. But I think now, when you bring people together like this panel, or the people that are in this audience, I think we're onto something, and we've been doing it for so long that now it's quote unquote maybe possibly the norm. I don't think it's the norm, it's just what it's been.
And the best example in sports that I have for change that was not recognized, ridiculed, rejected, was the Fosbury flop in the high jump. Okay, 1968, Mexico City. This guy, he's all gangly, he's far from the best athlete in the field. He sets the Olympic record and wins the gold, doing something we've never seen before. And biomechanically, his center of mass doesn't need to clear the bar, but his body does. Magic. 4 years later, 1972, gold medal. It's not as high a jump, and the guy's doing a old scissor, Western, whatever, I don't care. It's not as good biomechanically. 8 years for Fosbury to be accepted because there is not a biomechanically better way to do that competition. And in hindsight, looking back on that as a biomechanist, and you're going to say that you ridiculed it and rejected it? But that's a shame on you.
How many Olympians do it, the Western roll, these days?
Exactly zero. Exactly zero. Right?
Zero.
Yeah, I mean, that's for the person who's like, I'm 85 and I'm going to do the high jump. All right, we'll just roll over. Right? So, big change, big change is coming. And as far as I'm concerned, locomotion is the bridge to all things. Upright bipedal locomotion makes the human being the most efficient terrestrial animal on this planet.
Well, from a primal standpoint, BAM, to me, what's more primal than anything, right? We crawl, we stand up, we walk, right? But at the end of the day, if to survive as human beings, we had to sprint. Not long distances.
Well,
right? We can get into that, right?
Well,
but not long distance. I mean, there were certain times we had to run long distance, but at the end of the day, if we needed to survive, to eat, to feed our family, to actually just survive, what did we have to do? We had to sprint.
I get a lot of blowback because, especially in football, and I'll talk about this tomorrow, they say, well, it's all acceleration. Max speed's not important.
Bullshit.
And then they say, football is like this. Nobody runs in a straight line, so it's not important. So what do? They lift a ton and condition a lot, and they do a couple 5s or 10s. And what I say is the speed is the tide that lifts all boats. Les Spellman says speed is global. We will talk about Brian Kula's female golfers tomorrow in my presentation. And what happens is when we train the extreme, we train the range. And the most extreme movement in the human experience is sprinting in a straight line, spiked up with the wind and getting timed. By the way, if you're not getting timed, you're probably running. You're not sprinting. Plus, when you get timed, you are gamifying exercise, which makes it fun for kids. And we're really good at what we like, and we're obsessed with what we love, so making it fun for kids is really important. But sprinting in a straight line as fast as you can still is rejected by maybe 75% of
I'd say more than
the
that.
people in our business,
I'd say 90%.
and I'm all about that. We've got to learn how to sprint faster in a straight line, and we get better at everything else when we do.